to this week's episode of Hotter Than Health. My name is Eliza Gelman. If this is your first time listening, welcome. As you can see based on the title, we are going through the hierarchy of movement. This is part 4 of 4. We have gone through the hierarchy of movement based on longevity, best principles, and how I personally practice movement. And we talked all about resistance training. We talked about recovery. We have had previous episodes discussing Zone 2 training, which is we don't need to get into it. I have 2 episodes on it. But then we talked about hiit and high intensity. We also talked a little bit about how that affects your hormones. But today, as the 4th and final part of the series, this is 404, we're talking about flexibility and mobility. Before we get into it, let's address the elephant in the room. When I say elephant in the room, I simply just mean I have not been here in 3 weeks. And when I say I haven't been here, you all know I was on a big trip to Africa, biggest trip of my life. And without going into too much detail, I know if you follow me on social media, you saw some big life events happening. Climbing the tallest mountain in Africa, a safari that was really beautiful, and not to mention getting engaged. We decided we are going to do a episode that, if you're interested in this, the kind of details of the engagement, of the trip, of the altitude sickness, about all the things that actually went wrong, that I did post about on social media. It was honestly a pretty traumatic moment followed by a really beautiful moment. We're going to have a whole tell-all episode, really just to have a place for that story to live that we can go back and listen to with fond memories, and have a place where we can refer people to, like, hey, this is like our full breakdown of our trip, what happened, all of the details, like living on a mountain, getting engaged in a place where we absolutely had not expected, especially him, and all that has been going on in the past couple of weeks since. If you follow along, I appreciate it. If you don't follow along, maybe you will more afterwards. But I know that you are here right now to hear about flexibility and mobility. And as we know, with this 4-part series, with strength training, that's my number 1. Recovery, that's my number 2. 3 is that zone 2 cardio and hiit, high intensity. And then there comes flexibility and mobility. For different people, these will have a different hierarchy. Some of these different topics will weigh more heavily for others. And that's the case of it. Today, we're not really talking about why one is more important than the other. We're simply talking about the details behind flexibility and mobility. What is the difference between the two? What are some ways that you can tell, hey, I might be needing a little more attention in this area of my body as opposed to as another? Or what have you been experiencing in your body that working with your mobility and flexibility could improve? Before we discuss some of those details, I would generally like to discuss the difference between mobility and flexibility. I'll put all of the links to the information that I'm using in the show notes, but as we read through these, I really just wanted to cite some of these details as simply as possible. When it comes to mobility is dynamic, which means your muscles are lengthening and shortening while the joints are also moving. Your muscles and joints work together to move your body through a range of motion, and practicing mobility can help you move better and easier. Think of mobility being dynamic as when you're warming up. So if you're about to do sprints or a leg workout or squats, or you simply want to get your body moving before a jog, you may hold onto a wall, kick the leg back and forth, swing it around. Maybe you're doing arm circles. It's commonly used as an upper body warm up just to get the joints, rotate the shoulder joint, rotate the arms, and it can help get the blood flowing to the muscles, shortening and lengthening your muscles while you get ready for an upper body workout. Flexibility is passive. And when again, quoting here, flexibility is passive, meaning it's a person's ability to move their connective tissue with the help of another person or tool, while their muscles passively allow the movement to happen. Typically, your passive flexibility is greater than your active, since there's an external force helping your muscles stretch. So you think of an active chest stretch, you can stretch your chest muscles by holding your arms open like a goalpost and retracting your shoulder blades, but you can stretch them more by placing one arm on a wall and leaning forward. So you may notice if you are putting your hand on a door frame and then twisting your body into your shoulder. And so basically having that stable positioning of the wall is going to allow your body to flex and lean more into it than you more naturally would. So when you're doing arm circles and you're just stretching your arms around, that is mobility, like dynamic mobility. Flexibility is like if you're on the ground practicing your splits, or you're on the ground, you extend your leg and someone's pushing your leg back to stretch out your hamstring, maybe. So there is a difference. So mobility is something you would do to warm up and cool down, and flexibility is something you would do more stationary. That's what I really get out of it. Either way, when we are discussing mobility and flexibility, a lot of times people think, oh, well, I need to do more yoga to become more flexible, or I need to do yoga to like stretch out tight muscles, which is the case. But, oh, would you look at that? Pardon that little interruption. When you think about yoga, you think about stretching it out, but when it comes to warming up your muscles, I almost believe that mobility is more important than flexibility. And I say more important simply because I truly believe that the likelihood of someone sitting on the floor while they're watching a movie and, practicing doing their splits, or having someone hold their leg to stretch their hamstring, or, holding a position in a door frame for long periods of time with passive stretching, with flexibility, trying to just, stretch out those muscles for a long period of time. I just feel like that is less likely to happen than someone to prioritize a warm up before a workout or a cool down before a workout. You would more often see someone warming up their glutes, doing kickbacks or like body weight stuff, moving their body around like the shoulder circles or the leg kicks before a workout than you would seeing someone just sit down and go do a yoga class or do some downward dog while they're watching the Kardashians. You just typically see more mobility work than flexibility work, to be honest. Now, let's go through a couple of different symptoms / things you may notice within your body that may lend you to believe, oh, I need to do a little more flexibility. I need to do a little more mobility. This is my perception, because I wrote down 3 things that I have had happen to me, not chronically, but in big ways when they did happen. And I feel like I can speak to some of the things that helped me and also now help me prevent these things from happening. We're going to go into tight IT bands and what some of the symptoms are, a locked out SI joint or a tight SI joint, which is sacroiliac joint, and then tight traps and rhomboids, and what it really goes into with having a cricked neck, throwing out your back, quote unquote, and some of the things that you might notice in your nerves and hips. The first of these things that we're talking about is the IT band, which is also the iliotibial band. And when you have chronic pain with this, or you are discovering some discomfort within your knee, within your hip, we're going to go into some of the symptoms. The IT band, it's on the outside of your leg, essentially from hip to knee. We see a lot of people who may confuse having back issues or, oh, I have really tight hips, which is definitely a feeling, but it could also be more commonly to having a tight IT band. Some running coaches actually believe that having slightly too loose of IT bands is not good. I'm not a running coach. I don't have that much information on that, but I do know that there are different viewpoints when it comes to the tightness of your IT bands. I think it definitely comes down to pain. Are you feeling comfortable? Are you feeling uncomfortable? Do you notice a it could be the difference, who knows, between potential knee surgery in the future, hip surgery. Like, are there things we could do to prevent going under the knife, taking medicine, all that stuff. So when you are experiencing some symptoms of IT band syndrome is what they call it, these could confront you in ways. Again, these are not in a vacuum. There's definitely other things that could be causing these issues. However, these are a couple of things that are widely perceived to fall under the IT band syndrome blanket or umbrella, excuse me. It could be hip pain. So I'm not going to go into I don't even know what some of these words mean. I really don't. But there is friction causing inflammation in the tendons and the pain in your hip. So you might hear like snapping in your hip. You may feel some pain in your hip. There could also be a clicking sensation in around the outside of your knee. And it's so funny because I actually, now that I'm reading through these things, I thought that I just had fluid buildup in the back of my knee, but maybe I have tight IT bands. I have been experiencing a tiny bit of knee pain over the past year or so when I run. So maybe I just need to stretch out these dang IT bands. Maybe you guys come on this journey with me. So there's hip pain, clicking sensation, like a snap, pop, or click on the outside of your knee. Mine in particular has no pain at all. It's just a loud pop snap. Anytime I click my knee or bend my knee really deep. So I'm not saying it's always knee clicking. The next one is knee pain. The lateral epicondyle is on the outside of your knee. You also have a lateral epicondyle on your arm too, your elbow area. But your lateral epicondyle is the outside of your knee near the bottom of your femur, so the bottom of your thigh. And that's where the bone starts to widen. And the IT band rubs against that lateral epicondyle when you flex and extend your knee, and some of that inflammation and friction causes some pain in your knee. So it could be that if you stretch out or you foam roll and warm up those IT bands repeatedly, it could release some of that tension potentially. And then there's warmth or redness. The outside of your knee might look discolored and feel warm to the touch. That's interesting. I have not heard that or seen that, so maybe I don't have that issue. But again, you don't have to have all of these issues to find benefit from stretching out your IT band. While some people with IT band issues would notice more than others, maybe I just have the popping and clicking of the hip and knee. Other people might have all of those plus pain. Some people may have none of those and then just knee pain. I don't think that there is any one perfect way, but it does give a nice little how is this tested or how is this diagnosed, and it shows some of the things that your provider or doctor should check for if they are looking for signs of IT band syndrome. Yuck. Grating sounds or a grating feeling when your knee or hip moves. Oh my God, I definitely have that on my hip. Sometimes if I'm laying on my back and I am doing leg raises, even if I have my hands under my back and I have perfect form and I'm feeling strong, sometimes I feel that grinding, crunching in my front hip. Pain at the lateral epicondyle in one of both of your knees. Pain that increases the longer you exercise. Oh my God, it's my body. And then pain that worsens when you go downhill. Oh my gosh, it's me. And when Jason and I do a whole story about Kilimanjaro, you'll hear more about going downhill. Promise you that. This is super interesting. I think I read a lot of this earlier, but not the way that some of these are diagnosed. Now, there is, of course, recommendations. Some of these different recommendations are definitely simple, and I want to go through just 2 or 3 stretches that could be beneficial. There is one where you're just side lying leg raises, where you are lying on your side, hand is propping your neck up. You are, keeping your core engaged, but you're simply just flexing your feet, keeping both legs straight, You're in one long line, lifting one leg up and down, up and down. And it looks like it is simply strengthening and utilizing that outer leg, getting it to be warmed up, maybe getting more blood flow there. Then there is also, oh my gosh, this one will confront you and you will see the Lord. It's forward fold with your legs crossed. Usually if you do a forward fold, people make jokes like, oh, I can't even touch my toes. Well, prepare to be confronted. You cross one foot over the other, not a full cross, but just like loosely cross one foot over the other, plant both feet down flat, and try and keep your back straight and keep your hinge happening. So you'll exhale, hinge forward from your hips, and you try and keep your spine nice and long. Come to a forward bend, reach your hands towards the floor, elongate the back of your neck, and keep the knees slightly bent. And I'm telling you, this will have your IT band. If you're like, I still don't know where my IT band is, and you do this stretch, you will know exactly where it is. It will scream at you. And then there is the seated spinal twist. So you are, you know what? I would say that, but it's going to be too tough for me to try and describe. A foam roller. How about that? You're on a foam roller, you're on your side, and you are going from hip down to knee and utilizing the foam roller to just roll you back and forth. Those are 3 stretches. I know that it might be challenging, especially because we don't have video on the podcast, but I'm telling you, if you can figure out your IT band and loosen that up, if you're someone that struggles with knee pain, this could be the difference. This could really be a lot of the difference. Maybe you prioritize before any workout or long walk 3 of these stretches and do these before and after. You might just find that your life has changed. The next is going to be something that I have dealt with maybe 3 or 4 times, but it is what I have known to call it a locked out SI joint. And when I say SI joint, it really just stands for sacroiliac joint. And what I had noticed was it felt like, oh, all of a sudden I threw my back out. And when I said threw my back out, it was, it felt like my glutes were really tight, or it felt like I really couldn't walk. My lower back completely seized up to the point where I really couldn't move. And I thought, oh, it was this one move. It was this one workout. It was this one exercise. But when everything came down to it, it had really just been a compounding of dehydration mixed with sitting for too long. So you're constantly in that hip flexion, and then really tight glutes. And once that happens, your SI joint wraps from hip to hip across your butt cheeks, basically. And whenever I'm sitting on a foam roller, I will purposefully roll over the SI joint slowly. It's painful, but it shows you exactly where it is. It feels like you're going over a speed bump. So if you are foam rolling on your butt for long enough, slow enough, you'll start to feel that little whoop. Oh, I just went over a little speed bump of muscle or joint over my butt. Find that. If you feel like, oh, I just threw my lower back out and I can't move, I'm telling you, unlock that SI joint. Because once it's locked up, it really will continue to be fairly painful until you will feel a release. It could feel almost like a pop. It could feel just like a loosening, but your body is going to go into if it gets super tight and locked up, unless you rest it and really massage deep into it, it will stay at the ready. Like it will stay inflamed, fight or flight, won't let you go. It's really not fun. So it could basically, this is for lower back pain, pelvic pain, and overall like leg function. The first time that I noticed this happen to me, it was in the beginning of my weight training journey, strength training. I say journey. It was probably 3 years in, but I was living in Arizona at the time and I was doing a hack squat. And a hack squat is where you load a machine with plates and you put your back against, you brace your back against it. You have your hands holding onto something, and then you release the weights so that when you squat down, you feel the full you feel the full weight of these things, but you have all of the weight basically on your shoulders and your spine. And then, so you're using your glutes and your legs to stand back up. And I was at the bottom of this squat, like trying to hit a PR, trying to be cool. And as soon as I got to the bottom, I felt a tweak in my lower back. And thank God I didn't fall. I think our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, as well as just pure adrenaline, I felt it. I was so scared that I popped right back up. And when I popped back up, I couldn't move. I mean, thank God I popped back up. Truly, thank God. Like, I popped back up, put the weights on lock. And I think it was just, I was so scared that I was going to collapse under all this weight that my body, for some reason, allowed me to get up. But if you notice that you are someone who is constantly sitting, or maybe you don't sit a lot, but maybe you were on a long flight or a long car ride, and the next day you notice like a almost tweak in your lower back, so much of this has to do with that SI joint. High impact exercises, lots of cycling. So if you're a super cycler and you're not rolling out your glutes, that could be a super easy way to have some of that SI joint pain. It also could be from inactivity. You know, a lot of people who are inactive and they're like, oh, but I have such a bad back, like it's getting worse and worse. Movement, blood flow, loosening up, strengthening, moving that SI joint in your glutes is going to be huge. Here's something that I did not pick up on until earlier this year, or like late last year. I was talking to Jason about this. I said, I'm not sure what's going on with my knee. You know, I've been running more, but I also have been, busy with work, and I'm wearing nicer clothes to work. I had been wearing high heels, and I had been, for maybe 3 days a week, nothing crazy, but longer than I was used to. And then when I would be sitting down, it wasn't necessarily even the walking. When I would sit down wearing high heels, it automatically puts your knees up higher, so you're in more of a like hip flexed position. So I'm in more flexion, and when I am walking, I'm not fully extending. It's so wild. So you want to focus on arch support. You want to so anytime I was not working, I would be wearing really great shoes or no shoes at all, making sure that my body was just getting back to its natural rhythm. And I would do stretches where I'd lay on my stomach and just lift my chest up so that my hips were opening. And then I would stretch my glutes out on the opposite side. That has helped so much. And I feel like my nerves have really, really been grateful for that. This is not something I'm going to put too much faith in, because I just feel like it's a very I do believe that all of these things can cause issues. However, I do believe that this is a very broad list. These are foods that can potentially flare up your SI joint. While I do agree with them, I can also agree that these are, by eliminating these foods or strongly reducing these foods, you will likely find benefits in all area of your life. Sugar, processed foods, fried foods, and red meat. Higher in saturated fats, common trend. Super sugary processed foods, candy, sweet beverages, baked goods. This is fairly general, but this really does just go to show certain foods can cause inflammation, and it can be found not just in your skin or your cells, but it's also in your joints. It can hit you where it hurts right away. The last one that I wanted to talk to you about, to wrap that up, stretch your glutes. Get a lacrosse ball. If you travel for work and you are on an airplane, spend 30 seconds when you get back to your hotel room. Put a lacrosse ball on your butt cheek, sit down, roll around. It will hurt for a few minutes, but this is like preventative, the multivitamin of stretches. I really truly believe that. Get into your hip socket, get into your, lay on it, get in that hip joint. This is one that really shocked me. I thought, I've figured out the tight IT band, the stretches, the locked out SI joint. I've figured out the traps and the rumble. I'm skipping ahead. I'm reading through my notes. I thought I had figured out the lower body. I didn't think I had any problem with upper body. until about a year and a half ago, where I really tweaked my neck. Like, couldn't move for a couple of days. And I know people have done it way worse. I'm just complaining, but a lot of people that, like, once you open this up and you really start to figure out why this happened, some people are like, oh, I slept on it wrong, which absolutely happens, but likely you slept on it wrong after doing other things without much maintenance or prevention for a long period of time. It really is the straw that broke the camel's back. It's not just one night of bad sleep ever and everything else was perfect before. But when I tweaked my neck, you'll all know, if you've tweaked your neck even a little bit, it's one of those things where you have to turn your whole body to be able to talk to someone, and you always have to have super great posture, which, I mean, it's a blessing and a curse. But what I found, and I was doing a bunch of research trying to figure out, how can I fix this? How can I fix this? I'm so uncomfortable. It was tightness in my traps and my rhomboids. Traps are basically the shoulder neck muscles where your neck meets your shoulders, right? And like the meaty part. If you were going to put a barbell on your back when you're doing a squat, you'd basically set it on the traps. And I just so happen to be trap dominant. I don't know if that means weak shoulders, weak back, but I've been trying to work on balancing it all out. And then rhomboids, which are almost the muscles near the winged part of your scapula. So you're like, if you could reach underneath someone's shoulder blades, pull those out. Ugh, so creepy. Then you're around that rhomboid area. It's that middle back-ish. But some of the stretches and mobility work that I was recommended to do was the inverse of what we talked about in the beginning of the episode. It was go to a door frame. So let's say you've tweaked your neck really bad and you can't move and you're just miserable. You would find a door frame and face one of the door frames. So you're like nose to door frame on, let's say, one of the sides. If you're facing the left door frame, you would grip thumb down. So pinky up, thumb down. You would grip the door frame and then lean onto that shoulder. So whichever pinky is up, say I'm using my right hand, pinky is up, holding onto the door frame, and I'm just leaning into that right shoulder. So that you're leaning into the right shoulder, keeping your neck nice and straight and long, and letting your body be straight and catching yourself, just slowly leaning in to stretch out the back muscle. Holding that for 10 seconds at a time, however potentially uncomfortable, it might just feel really good, and you might think, oh, this feels nice, like it's probably not doing much. Do that on each side 5 times in a row for 10 seconds each or so. And what I'm telling you, if you're like, oh my God, that seems like a lot of stretching. If you're in pain, you will do just about anything to fix it. That's the first stretch that I did that really changed everything for me. Leaning into that shoulder, stretching out the arms so that you're basically your body is at a slant and the only thing holding on is just your hand to the door frame. The next one was basically just kneeling down I found a box at the gym. People do box jumps on it. You can use a bench, you can use your couch, you can use a chair, but you would be kneeling, get into a prayer pose essentially, and then just push your hips back, put your elbows on hands in a prayer position, elbows on the table or on the chair or on the box, and then pull your hips back and just keep your elbows on the table so you're stretching out the back muscles even more. It feels so, so good. Then for the traps. This one's very simple, but very effective, and you will feel it immediately. What you're going to do is there's 2 different exercises. The first one, it shocked me how much actual pain I was in, no joke. You'll bring your arms out to the side, straight arms out to your side, 90-degree angle, and then fingers up to the ceiling, flex your fingers, and then try and bring your fingers back towards your body. So you're basically pushing away from you while your fingers are trying to reach back to your face. And you will feel nerves that you didn't even know you had underneath your arms from your wrist all the way to your armpit. That thing will light you up. And then the next thing that's really, really simple is just bring one arm to your opposite ear. So right hand comes around to your left ear, and you just slowly drop your left shoulder and tilt your head to the opposite direction so you're stretching out your traps. If you are someone who is on your phone a lot, if you consider yourself someone who needs to work on their posture, you have a desk job, you're traveling a lot, there's not really anyone that I can think of who couldn't benefit from these stretches. But even if you've thrown your neck out 1 or 2 times, incorporating some of these stretches, maybe just when you're doing upper body workouts, or when you are just have a couple seconds near a door frame. Like, all of these things are free. You can do them right now. You don't need to be fancy. You don't need equipment. That's the thing. That's the thing about these stretches in this episode. All of these things can be free. You can do them all right now. You can do them. I've done these on an airplane. Like, there's really not a lot of excuses on why you shouldn't be doing these things, but that's typically how it goes. It's usually Occam's razor. The easiest thing is usually the solution. Stay consistent with flexibility and mobility, because having a back that you feel like is thrown out or keeps getting locked out, or you're in super nerve back pain, usually we go and get a massage on our back, but really it's not our back. Maybe it's our IT band or the SI joint. And then we have a crick in our neck. We're like, oh my gosh, it's my neck. Well, maybe it's actually your middle back. Ever thought of that? You know, I'm really happy to have been able to record this 4 out of 4 hierarchy of movement series. I'm also just even more grateful for our consistent sponsors over the years. We have had Organifi, who has been sponsoring our green juices. Jason and I, when we ran out, we didn't get our honestly, our fix or our supply in before we flew out to Africa. We talked about it. Well, we were living on a mountain with, most intense experience of our life. And something that we could not stop talking about was our greens. We missed our greens so much. We had to stuff ourselves with carbs. That'll be in the next episode. We'll tell you all about what we ate, what we had to do, all the things. But what we couldn't stand was not having our greens, and they're on the way. I got a notification that the package will be here anytime, and I cannot wait to get back into our greens. There is something about the consistency of, not the physical consistency, but how consistently we feel good during our conference calls, and how often we feel like we just start our day off right. It just kicks our day off on the wrong foot when we have our greens powder. If you are interested, I know that they will eventually start to get a lot of orders for Christmas, the holidays, especially as we're traveling. Please prioritize your health, your greens, your fiber, your ashwagandha to help your nervous system during this time of year. You can use the code HTH for 20% off. I will also put a link in the show notes for anyone interested. I'm just so happy that they have continued to be a sponsor. We love Organifi, don't we? Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Hotter Than Health. It has been great. I can't wait for next week. For those who are interested in hearing about the Kilimanjaro and the engagement, we will talk to you next week.